Welcome back to the Primal Reset podcast. Today, we're joined by Dr. Jennifer Prohaska. She's a licensed clinical psychologist and the founder of Tactical Longevity. She's nationally recognized for her work supporting first responders and high-stakes professionals through anti-fragility training and performance psychology. Dr. Prohaska, it's a pleasure to have you. Welcome to the show.
I'm so glad to be here.
So walk me through what got you into helping start Tactical Longevity and what got you in the wellness industry?
Yeah, so the origin story is I am a clinical psychologist who only really works with mostly first responders, mostly tactical teams, and people in high stress positions in general. So, first responder community, they're they're a difficult breed. I'll be honest. They're different and they're difficult to work with sometimes. And they also have high exposure to really horrible events, right? And so most of my work up until about 2022, 23 was kind of just seeing individuals one at a time, right? For critical incident stress stuff. So they'd been through a major incident, they'd seen something horrible, they'd had to do something horrible. All of that happens and they come into my office and it's back to back, one after another. And one day after seeing about 8 or 9 patients in a row, I kind of thought to myself, okay, I've got to do something different because these poor people are coming in like broken to me. And then I put them back together. I try to glue them back together and then I send them back out to their professions again, only to get broken again. And so this is just a never ending cycle. And I am never going to be able to get out of this cycle. These people are never going to be able to get out of this cycle if we don't start thinking about what can we do ahead of the incident, ahead of the bad thing that we know they're going to be going to. What do we do ahead of the bad incident to help them be most likely to improve their odds of getting through the incident with the least amount of mental damage? And so that's kind of where Tactical Longevity was born, is how do I help prepare people who we know are going to be exposed to trauma? How do I make sure I set them up for the best possible success? And that was where it came from.
Awesome. Awesome. I love the backstory of everything. And I say this almost every single podcast, but I love the backstory where it comes of a place of service in the wellness industry and everyone wants to see other people thrive and not have to go through things that either they've gone through or they've seen and worked with patients. So I love the mission behind it and the purpose behind it as well. What would you say are traditional workplace wellness programs? Let me re-ask that. Why are traditional workplace wellness programs failing, and what would be the real solution in your opinion?
So I'm a pretty big advocate for the current state of wellness programming in agencies, in employment, wherever you're employed, right? Is kind of putting band-aids over bullet holes, to quote Taylor Swift, right? It's a lot of, I'm going to give you this one-off tip. I'm going to help you with this little exercise, or we're going to do this thing, like we're going to throw a pizza party, right? We're going to throw a pizza party and everyone's going to feel valued. At the end of the day, actually, people feel less valued when that happens because you're using the wrong currency. So if someone's problem is that they are having a really hard time feeling valued in the workplace and they don't feel valued by their bosses, but then HR comes in and throws a pizza party, it's the wrong group of people throwing a temporary solution on a much bigger problem. And so it feels really dismissive. And so that's one reason why things don't work, is because it's coming from the wrong source and it's just kind of a half-assed effort, to be honest with you. And then the other thing is the things that really truly cause people stress oftentimes cannot get resolved by temporary initiatives like yoga, breathing, stuff like that. Those are great things for temporary stressors. But a lot of the people's stress in the workplace is more chronic in nature. And so we have to start thinking about other ways to manage chronic stress, which is stuff like how we think about stress to begin with, how we come to terms with the things we cannot control. I hate to get existential on it, but that's really kind of the nature of what we have to look at when we look at more chronic stress, especially in the workplace.
Absolutely. I mean, mind over matter. Mindset is everything. It's, the pizza parties are great. I love pizza. So I don't mind them, but at the same time, I completely agree with you. Throwing a pizza party or having some sort of prize or anything doesn't necessarily make everyone feel more valued within the workplace, especially with the things that they're dealing with. And not even just at work, but at home that we might not know of at the same time. So if we're able to help them and like what you're doing, being able to help them, hey, like, how can we help with everything that you're dealing with and almost prevent it happening again if there's another scenario, especially in the high stakes situations that your clients kind of go through every single day. Like, how can we help that to make sure that it's not going to happen again, or we understand we have our building blocks. We know what we can go back to in order to reframe our mind. And then we can enjoy a pizza party.
Right, for sure, 100%. And honestly, it's better than doing absolutely nothing. Okay, I will say that. But it's kind of like when you kind of only bring half the effort, you're only going to get maybe even a fourth the result. So, and I've also learned through just even psychology and owning businesses that if people are naturally motivated in one direction, if you don't respond to their natural motivations and you provide an alternative motivation, oh yay, we get, 20 extra bucks or whatever at the end of a quarter, but their motivation isn't money to begin with. When you incentivize them with something that they don't value, it actually diminishes the entire goal, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with that. And to the point of all the information that we've heard out there, what would you say is the biggest myth about resilience in high stress professions?
Ooh, that is a hard question. I think the biggest myth is so resilience is returning to baseline. I actually think we should aim for much higher than that. So I think it's not necessarily a myth, but I think we should break through and try to do something else. So I'm big on post traumatic growth. How do we go through a trauma and use it for a better version of ourselves? How do we use the horrible experience after enough time and like effort has been put in to kind of work through it? How do we make us better? Not return to baseline. Let's use those horrible experiences to make us stronger. And that's kind of when you look at all like the greats in the world, they had horrible failures, horrible pain, and they got through it because they used those experiences for growth. And then they became much stronger and much more powerful and much more creative and much more generative. They became better people.
It's great to ask those questions. It's kind of a hard hitting question, I know that, but I'm always curious because we have so much information out there about, there's mental health this, mental health that, and we haven't really seen that much of a change. I think we've socially taken that as, oh, well, my mental health day is I'm going to wake up later, or I'm going to grab a coffee, or I'm going to, be lazy today because it's my mental health reset day. Not quite the way it works. So that's why I always ask these myths and see
Oh,
like, what do you think is a myth? I have my own opinions and I'm sure everyone else does as well. But that's why I was curious about that one.
well, you just touched on another thing is I think like there's a whole burgeoning self-care industry, right? And I cannot tell you how much I cringe when I hear the term self-care because I think that people think about these superficial things like I'm gonna, lie in bed all day or, go to the spa or whatever. That's not self-care. That's not meaningful self-care. That's very temporary. Self-care is how do I make myself stronger? Self-care is when the other stressors in life come up, what skills am I giving myself? Am I demanding of myself? So that when the next challenge comes along, because it always will, how do I know I'm in a better spot to deal with it? That's true and genuine self-care.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We got to kind of pull away from the whole. It's fine to have, that self-care day and go to the spa or to the beach or whatever people want to
Whatever.
do, but at the same time don't associate that with that's mental health. That's self-care day. That's going to be optimal for the future as well.
Yes. And I will tell you, I see a lot of people who also start to kind of take the mental health days and I think take the mental health stuff in a society. And it's a little controversial, kind of almost too much like their own identity, right? And so that it helps define them a little bit instead of wanting to work through it. And I think that we're heading in the wrong direction on that. We're the most therapized generation in history, but we're also the most unhappy. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
We got to go to Finland. Finland has been rated the number one happiest place in the world for a long time. I just recently saw they are trying to introduce, or they have introduced, a 4 day work week and a six
Ah,
day or 6 hour work day.
fascinating. Okay.
So maybe we'll have to go to Finland or at least take what they're doing and kind of apply it here as well. Share a
Love it.
story with me on how anti-fragility, am I saying that correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Fragility. Share a story with me where anti-fragility training has transformed someone's life.
Yes. So I actually had a recent example be conveyed to me. I have to be kind of a little cryptic on exactly the situation, of course, because of what I work with. But
Of
I
course.
had someone call me the other day and say, "Hey, I just want you to know that what you're doing is working." And by the way, those things mean a lot. I mean, I put a lot of energy into it. And so when you don't hear the stories back, it sucks. But when you hear them, it's great. And so I got this story from somebody who called me and said, "Hey, we were in a really bad situation. We had someone in imminent danger, and there was a team of us trying to figure out how to get this person to safety. And they were from different types of industry and they were kind of looking at the problem differently. And these two groups of people don't work together great, right? And so in the moment, they were able to use some anti-fragility skills with regards to kind of looking at the bigger picture or like stopping and pausing and learning how to communicate on the same plane, which is what we teach in class a lot, is how do you get to a level of understanding their motivation and your motivation quickly, and then saying, hey, this is what we call a palms up situation, which is I'm not going to fight you, which is fists up. I'm not going to block you out and not listen, which is kind of throw your hands up and walk away. This is palms up. So I'm going to negotiate with you. let's look at the bigger picture. This is the same thing we want. So how do we trade information here? How do we be kind of adaptive and flexible here? And how do we get that person to safety with both of our needs being met and communicating the best we can? And ultimately, that person did get to safety and lived because they were able to communicate. These two groups of people who think totally differently about situations and communicate differently were able to say, what's our palms up moment? How do we communicate on the same plane? How do we negotiate? And then that person was safe. And so I think that was a good example of what we know about both being mentally flexible, which is part of anti-fragility, also being able to communicate in a broader context and also understand the other person better, also part of anti-fragility. And then ultimately that person was safe.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. It's almost depressing to hear sometimes, or not hear sometimes when you do work with someone and you never really get to see that end result. So it's awesome that you get calls every now and then and get to actually experience, hey, like this is working. Like I'm getting real live feedback of what I helped do for someone else.
And I wish I could tell you the intensity of it too, because it was a really intense situation, but everything's a little protected. So
Of
just believe
course.
believe me, it was intense.
I definitely believe you. I definitely believe you. I mean, we go through this every single day and everyone does as well. What personal experiences led you to develop tactical longevity?
Okay. That's a hard one. No one ever asked the psychologist
You
questions
can be
about them.
vague. You can be
Well,
vague. You can be
no.
vague.
No. Okay, so I had everything materially in my childhood growing up. Everything, right? Everything. And I was not wanting for anything. But my parents were very busy people and it was really chaotic. And so a lot of my childhood I had to watch and observe how people got through things because there wasn't a lot of like individualized, hey, here, I'm going to walk you through this. I'm going to be scaffolding. I'm going to help you through this. And tell me how you're thinking. Tell me how you're feeling. And as much as I will say that really hurt, and I wouldn't wish that experience on anyone growing up, it absolutely put me in the right spot to develop this program. And I've never had anyone ask me that.
Well, it's always like the doctor always asks how you are, but no one asks
Yeah.
how the doctor is.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same way. We're all humans. We all go through the same thing, whether we're professionals at one thing or not. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
especially mental health, like we have good days and bad days. I say it to everyone. I'm like, don't ever expect, and especially starting your own business or being an entrepreneur of some kind, don't always expect this.
Right.
Expect a heartbeat. And it's not every day, it's every hour, it's every second. Like
Yeah.
something could snap like that. But I heard a quote from Alex Hormozy, and I'm going to butcher it a little bit, but he said, if people can stay mad for no reason, you might as well be happy for no reason. So
Absolutely.
something bad is going to happen. It's going
Yeah.
to. People die in car crashes every single day. There are people dying every day. There are people getting sick every day. There are people who don't even have roofs over their heads or food on the table. And we don't really count our lucky stars on that. And then something happens where we didn't get the right colored iPhone. Oh, our day is ruined. But it's like, maybe it is. But I always ask, and I'd love your opinion on this one. I always tell all my friends this. I say, when you're worried about something or something happened to you, is it going to matter in 5 minutes? Is it going to matter in 5 days, 5 weeks, or 5 years? And if it's not, don't spend more than 10 or 5 minutes on it. Cry about it, complain about it, whatever you might want to do for 5 minutes, and then move on. Because if
Yeah.
it's not going to matter in 5 years, whoop-de-doo. Something else is going to happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that you're commenting on the temporariness of suffering too, right? Most suffering is temporary. We kind of choose to extend our suffering sometimes by focusing on it a certain way.
Well, we have a victim mindset, from what my opinion is in today's society. We have a very victim mindset, and I think that's where the earlier point we spoke about on the mental health days and whatnot, of getting your nails done or going to the beach or laying on the couch, is, well, I'm a victim. My heart hurts or my body hurts, or we take that temporary pain and it's like, but I've gone through so much struggle. Well, everyone has, and to be honest with you, not everyone really cares. They
True.
don't know who you are. They don't really care what you've gone through because they're dealing with their own stuff. By the end of the day, you're going to lay your head on that pillow, and who's the final thought in your head? Yourself. Yourself. And honestly, rightfully so. I say you should be selfish to a certain point. You
I
should look
agree.
in the mirror every day and try to like what you see. Once you like what you see, then you can help others with whatever mission it is in your mind.
And I think that it also kind of people become victims in their own mind because they feel like, they focus on things that they cannot control, right? And so if you spend so much time focusing on the things you cannot control, you will ultimately turn into somebody who thinks of themselves as a victim. And so one of the things that we talk about with anti-fragility is focusing on the things that you can control and letting the rest go. letting it go, because it's not going to matter in 5 years, right? It's not. We have a skill that we teach called the 5 year test. What's this going to look like in 5 years if I hold on to the bitterness of this? How am I going to look in 5 years? And guess what? It's not good, right? So a bad thing can happen. You can process it in the moment, but then you have a decision to make. You have a decision to make. You can go left or right. One is the shitty draft you wrote, right? Of that horrible thing that happened to you. And how are you going to look 5 years from now if you carry that forever? You're not going to look very good. Or you can stop, pause, and rewrite a version that's both accurate and helpful. And then in 5 years from now, you're a totally different person. And I think people don't realize that they do have a choice, even through their emotional pain. You have a choice about how to view it and how to use your pain for purpose.
Yeah, it's great that it's funny. It's almost like I went through your course.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's great that you have that advice as well for the even the short-term pain as well. Like I said, is this going to matter in 5 years? Don't spend more than 5 minutes because time is the only thing we can't get back.
Yeah,
And that's why for me, time is always the most valuable asset, simply because I know that every second that I spend doing something or worrying about something or complaining about something, I'm not ever going to get it back. So if it's not going to matter that much to me, why would I spend more time on it?
totally. Yeah, totally.
How would you envision, with that all being said, how would you envision the future of mental health support in high stake professions?
Okay. I'm going to start with like, I'm on a mission for something else though, too. So if that's okay, I'm going to back up even further and say, like, one of my missions is to make sure that humans moving forward think about stress differently so that we're stronger and we can keep moving through it. Things are getting more and more stressful. Like, life is getting more and more stressful, especially recently. And we are so very much not prepared. And if we do not build the skill set to be prepared, we're just going to keep falling down and tumbling and getting weaker. And so that's kind of the mission, I think, is for me to make people stronger so that when the bad thing happens, they can quickly recover and come back. And we kind of used to be that as a country, I'll say, and I know this gets a little political, but I think we've lost a lot of that. And I really want us back to that. I know it helped me get through hard times, and I know it will help other people get through hard times. And we
Absolutely.
have,
The
yeah,
patriotism we've
a little
lost
bit.
a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Oh,
Or anyone. I don't care where you're from. I want people to think about this differently so they suffer less.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I agree with that. We definitely, and I think based on my experience in my lifetime, unfortunately, we've been the most patriotic when bad things have happened. And it's great to see, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, can we be like that most of the time? Like, whether, and like you said, it does always go politically, but whether you're left, right, center, backward, whatever it is, like, we're American. You live in America. Don't you want to see Americans succeed or America succeed? And whoever's in power, whoever's running the whole press or whatever it may be, it doesn't really matter. It's we want to see other human beings, and honestly, it's not even limited to just America. We want to see the world thrive. We want to see people live happy lives and live the most out of their lives. Whatever they want to do doesn't make a difference.
Mhm.
It's, certain things. Obviously, criminality is not something that I'm promoting,
Sure. Good call on that one. Yeah.
but we'll put a disclaimer at the bottom here.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I'd like to see every single person succeed in whatever it is they want to do. Because if they can't wake up every single day, look at themselves in the mirror and say, I like what I see, then I think the patriotism and I think the mental health support and I think the victimization is all going to end up catching up even further than we're already at. And it's going to end up crumbling, you
I
know?
will. And I think back to your original question, I think that that's where I want to see mental health heading is more on the preventative side, of course. Now, you all know there's no money in prevention, right? So like the system is built for, keeping sick people kind of sort of sick, to be honest with you, right? Or needing services. But if we can stand up against that individually and start thinking about our lives differently, I think that we can get healthier. And I think that's where the real answer is. Because again, like I said, all these people are in therapy, but we're not better. We're not happier, right? And I think we'll hopefully get back to more like holistic approach, like understanding the importance of community, understanding the importance of your social connections being like primary in keeping you mentally well, and then also having purpose in your life. It's everyone's individual responsibility to find their purpose.
Absolutely. I mean, I was always told as a kid from my dad, you are who you hang around. So
Oh, yeah.
whatever that may be, and I think we've taken that a little bit in today's society with social media kind of having standards that I guess we lost at a certain point. But I think these standards have kind of gone in a bad way. I think we're over standardizing everything. We're like, oh well, this person doesn't like this kind of food, It's like, well, okay, that's not quite a standard, like we don't have to go that far into it, but it's also mindset. For me, like when I pick my friends and I look at my friends and I'm like, hey, like who do I really want to hang around? Who do I see? And I'm on the younger side, so for me it's more of a potential than it is already a success. But if you hang around people who want similar things and have this similar mindset to you, you can get through everything. I feel sometimes like a therapist, I'm sure like everyone does as well with their friends, but I can't help you work through stuff. I can only help you change your mindset so then you can work through stuff. And I think that's where we take the therapist version of like, they're going to help me get through it. It's like, well, they're going to help you reframe your mind, or at least they should help you reframe your mind so that you can get through it, because it's not them, it's your life, it's your responsibility, it's your thoughts. You are the one that needs to wake up every day and look at you.
Yes.
No one else needs to. So if we can take that approach, I'm hoping that with more awareness and more in the future, we'll see more brands like yourself, or you guys being the staple of
Totally.
tactical longevity, of being that mental health care. Hey, how can we help reframe your mindset? What is your purpose? And we can help you find it, but I'm not going to give you the answer because it's your life.
Yeah,
I
I'm a
don't
guide.
know.
Yeah, a guide. It's a guide, not a
Exactly.
directive. Yeah.
Exactly.
And that
Exactly.
connection piece is like when we talk about people who can get through trauma in particular, your connections, the strength of your social connections is directly related to how well you will cope after an incident. So when we go in and we study like natural disasters, for example, and we study who develops post-traumatic stress after a natural disaster, which is, by the way, the easiest thing to study because it's one event, it happens at one time, right? I mean, everyone kind of experiences generally the same thing. The strength of your social connections is the highest predictive factor as to who develops post-traumatic stress or not. People who have strong social connections significantly less likely to develop trauma symptoms after the incident. Weak social connections, much higher to develop symptoms.
Interesting. And
Yeah.
let's be very specific on
Yeah.
social connections.
Yeah.
Define that.
Okay, so we're talking about good quality social connections. And so this does not mean like, oh, yeah, I know them from Instagram, right? That's not what I'm talking about. This is if something is going wrong, I can openly communicate this to another person and they will understand or try to understand where I'm coming from. They don't have to nail it perfect. They will try to understand where I'm coming from. They'll be present with me in my suffering, and they're not going to judge, and they'll stay open. They might not have the best advice. They might not have any advice, but they're willing to be present. And I think that we overcomplicate friendships sometimes when really there's a lot of times that nothing a friend can actually say. They're just bearing witness to your experience, right? And so people that are willing to bear witness and sit with you in your suffering, those are the types of people that we talk about deep friendships and deep connections. That's the type of stuff I'm talking about.
All right. I wanted that clarified. So it's not social media connections. It's
It's
not how many
not.
followers you have. It's
No.
who's around you. Who are you seeing every
Yes.
day or every other day or however many times it is? Who is
Yes.
really going to be there for you? Who can you pick up the phone at
Mhm.
3 a.m., call, and they will pick up?
And by the way, yes, you should have a variety of people. Like, you don't want all one type of friend. So I love what you brought up about like picking your social circle and being more determinate in that. Like, so for example, I have friends that I would 100% call to help me move, but I am not asking them for relationship advice. That's just not the thing. Like they all have their little niche they fill, right? And we need our niches filled. And so we should have more than one friend that we rely on for everything. And I also think that goes back to partners too. I think we should, yes, your romantic partner can help in some ways, but you also need to have friends. You can't rely on one
Absolutely.
person for everything. That's such a burden on that person. And so I think a lot of times we're seeing these really tiny niche down social circles that are one person, two people. And we need to start thinking about how do we expand? Like I have some great people in my life that if I need a distraction, I call them and they're great for distraction, but they might not be who I would have come pick me up from a like really vulnerable moment at the doctor's office, right? Nothing
Absolutely.
wrong with that. They're just different people. So,
Absolutely. I used to play hockey. So for me, I always take everything into a hockey sense and kind of in a team,
yeah.
we have roles. So if you see, I mean, the Stanley Cup playoffs are going on right now, but if you look at all of the lines, so you've got the first forward line, second, etc. And if you look at all of the players individually, there's a lot of them that don't belong on the first two lines. They don't belong on the best lines, but they have a different role on the team than everyone else does. And that fits well with different roles on that first or second line. And that's why they're on there. I mean, me myself, like I was, on the first, second line most of my career. And but I wasn't, the goal scorer. I wasn't the skill guy. I was the guy to move everyone out of the way. So my skilled guy and my goal scorer could do their work. And I
Mhm.
think in the same way with friends, it's, you don't need, 100 friends. And honestly, if you can find one true friend, you're already at a head start because
Yeah.
most people don't have one true friend. But if you can surround yourself with a group of, hey, this person is really great for, like you said, entertaining. If we want to go out on the to the bars, or if we want to go see a movie or whatever it is, great. Take my mind off of whatever it is. But if this person's really good on, I need help for my relationship advice, or this person's great on maybe business advice, or maybe this person's great on, just talking about life, whatever it may be, that's where we kind of build that community. And I almost think about it almost in like the medieval times,
Yeah.
where like, they had peasants, they had jesters, they had kings, they had merchants, lords, and everyone had a different role. And yes, I mean it was a bit different. It was, you were born into it back then,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it's, they understood their role and they didn't really vary from that role.
Mhm.
So if I needed to go find someone that was funny, I'm not going to a peasant, I'm going to a jester. Because
Absolutely.
that's their role. Their role is
Yeah.
to be funny, right? So that's the way I always take at it as well. And I love what you said about it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say, I think also socially, it's interesting that we, again, more and more and more and more people are in therapy and we have less and less friends. And this may be somewhat controversial, but I sometimes think that as a society, we're starting to use therapists to fill the friend role. And that's not good. We shouldn't be filling that role. I only want people to come to me that absolutely need me for something serious. Otherwise, I want that void in your life filled by friends because they're way more reliable and they're way more available and they're way more diverse. So sometimes I worry about that's what's also happening in society is we're using therapists to fill the friend and family role.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening as well. So that being said, with therapists filling the role and everything, what other emerging trends do you see shaping the wellness industry within the next decade?
Buddy, okay. I'm so excited you asked this. I might sound like I'm way out there, but I am super excited for the psychedelic movement and like the secondary version of this. The using, because I treat trauma, right? So let me back it up a little bit. I treat a ton of trauma and I treat trauma that has been really stuck for a really long time. And people have gone through multiple rounds of therapy and tried all sorts of things, right? And this is really embedded trauma. And our best therapies, top notch therapies, only about 41 to 53% of people will fully remit from having their disorder. But some of the psychedelic therapies are coming out with numbers in the 65, 75% range. And that's huge when it comes to like feeling better. And so when it comes to the wellness industry and I guess the unwellness industry too, I'm actually very excited for that revolution to take place. So it's a different pathway, but I've had some patients that it's not legal here, right? So I've had some patients that, I'll give them information about some other opportunities outside of the country. And I've had amazing results on some of the psychedelic therapies.
Interesting. That'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, I think so too. It's not necessarily the wellness space, but I think it's the how do we get people so they can start working on well, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it'll be interesting to see all the studies come out in the next couple of years as well from other countries, and then see if that'll be something implemented here as well.
And actually,
Um,
the state of Texas has recently started an initiative for ibogaine treatment to help people with post traumatic stress, substance use disorders, head injury, kind of get back to well. Given that the state of Texas, of all states, is interested in kind of perpetuating some improvements in the mental health space through psychedelics, I'm actually very excited.
well, my last question for you, and I ask this to everyone on every single podcast, is generally my last question. What's the first step? If you had to give me a short answer for the very first step of what people can do on the mental health side to view themselves in a better light, what would that be?
That is a deep question. The very first step, start listening to stuff that's not normally stuff you would listen to, just in the wellness space in general. So start getting curious, I guess is what I'd say. So curiosity over judgment. That's what I would tell people. Just start to be curious about your own process, about your own thought process, about how your behaviors are. If you're curious over judgmental, you're more likely to make steps towards change.
I love it. I love it. And last but not least, Jennifer, where can more people find more information about you? What's your social media handles? What's your website?
Yeah, so tacticallongevity.com is our programming related to antifragility. So that's kind of the best place to go for that stuff. On social, I'm just Dr. Jenny Prohaska on LinkedIn, and then also on Instagram is First Responder Psychologist, and then Facebook is the First Responder Psychologist. Those are your two places.
Awesome. Well, I'll have all those links in the below description. But Jennifer, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for coming on. We'll
Same.
have to do this again in the future.
Yes, for sure. Absolutely.